Okay, welcome everyone to the BBSim Brigade call. Just a reminder that this call is going to be recorded. So if there is something you don't want to share, please don't share it. Thanks everyone for coming. And we have 4 points on our plate for today's discussion. I wanted to start with the implementation of the ONU disable that is currently sitting in Gerrit, waiting for a review. As I mentioned, I had a brief discussion over Jira with Zdravko, and looks like this implementation is pretty much an ONU shutdown and power on again more than a failure or a disable of the ONU itself. So if you take a look in the code, I've just called that command ONU shutdown and ONU power on, so that it reflects what is actually doing for the ONU. Because I felt that disable enable was a little confusing because it was the same name we have involved that to admin disable a device and re-enable it. Does it make sense?
Yes, it makes sense to me.
Okay, if no one else has anything to add, I'll just call it power off and power on. And then the other thing, the other two things I wanted to discuss on this point was whether should we emulate different kind of failures in the new, and whether OMCI should be involved when we emulate a failure. What do you do? Someone has opinion on this?
What do you mean OpenOMCI should be involved if there's a failure?
So my guessing is that if something goes wrong in the ONU, the ONU is sending out MCI messages to the to the OLT to report some kind of alarm or malfunction. Currently, we are not doing this in BBSim. We are directly calling the gRPC endpoint from the OLT. Is that the right way to emulate a failure, or should we start sending these OMCI messages? And I'm asking because I'm not entirely familiar with OMCI yet.
Okay, I have one question about the definition of ONU failure. So what does this mean?
Yeah, that's a good question, Keita. I think it's related to this other question I had, because I believe an ONU can fail in a few different ways. It can be a software problem, it can be an hardware problem, and how does the ONU report this issue to the OLT and to Volta?
I understand your point, but I'm also not familiar with the OMCI messages. But I guess, OMCI messages somehow be involved with the ONU failure, at least in the EPON system. I'm not familiar with the XGS PON system, but in the IEEE EPON system, OAM messages is involved with the failure of ONUs.
Okay, so I'll take an action item to investigate these two things and see what we can do to better emulate a physical system.
Yes, I guess chip would be chip in Tibet communication would be familiar with the OMCI system. So yeah, I think he's the best guy to ask about this kind of things.
Okay, I can try to get in touch with Chip.
So I think the question is also maybe worth discussing is how do we want to handle, what kind of failures are we looking at? Because, some failures where the ONU can generate some message, I guess those can be well defined, but would you want to also emulate, to be able to emulate something like, okay, the ONU is non-responsive and we have no idea what happened, just to basically shut it off or tear it off and see how Volta behaves or how the subscribers sessions behave on that. So I think you might need to do some thinking how to structure this if we want to have the ability to do kind of extensive failure simulations of different failures.
Yeah,
because what we added in the last version was kind of loss of signal alarms and stuff like that. So that's doable. But beyond that, beyond alarms, do we want to be able to emulate specific behaviors which are useful for testing? I think that's also an open question.
Yeah, I think that was this question. Should we emulate multiple types of failure? And the answer is probably yes, but we need to define a list of failures that we want to emulate. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so for this, I think it's a very good point for the future, but for now, we'll start porting the failure types we have in the current implementation to the new one, so to achieve feature parity. And once that we have that, we can implement some more scenarios.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Until I also have one more question about the current version of BBSim that you created. So, and I have not tested your version yet, and I want to know the stability of your BBSim. So, does anyone already test your BBSim with Volta2.x?
Yes. Let me find. There is this set of tests that is running the same Volta stability test that are run on the old BBSim against the new one. It runs every half an hour and it looks pretty stable. If you want to look at which kind of test it's running, we can go in the log as soon as it loads. But basically, it's bringing up the OLT, verifying with one PON port and one ONU for now, verifying that ONU goes in the correct MCI state, gets authenticated, and gets an IP.
What are you using to run the pipeline, the end-to-end pipeline?
There is a pipeline that set up BBSim and then invokes the robot test.
Okay, because the robot sanity test, I'm out of the box I haven't been able to work with BBSim 2. So
Let me show you. So the pipeline is basically setting up kind Volta, downloading BBSim, creating pushing the values for the new BBSim into Sedis, installing BBSim, and then is running exactly this command. It's the sanity pipeline.
Okay, but the ONU serial number is not consistent, so I don't know how that works.
That's a good question. Where does
It's got or, okay, that's not working. It says or true at the end, so it's just passing it for now.
Oh, I wonder where
Look at the end of the line.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
So robot test isn't running for you, and that's fine. There's some little changes that probably need to be made as I'm working through some of them right now.
If I look at the test result for a random run, we have 7 passes and 0 fails.
Yeah, but that's just because that line's always passing. So what I found very briefly this morning is I ran with the BBSim 2 and I was manually able to enable or create an enable device. Then I was and it authenticated EA poll blazingly fast. And then I added the access in Ono's OLT app for the port, and it blazingly fast got a DHCP act. So a manual configuration worked. I only did it once this morning, but I'm trying to run the repeat and the robot test now. And right now, the robot test doesn't seem, because of some of the dynamic capabilities of this implementation.
Okay, I'm going to take a deeper look at the test too.
Yeah, it also deletes ONU, the OLT and ONU at the end. So if that patch hasn't been completed yet, that step of it's not going to work either.
Yeah, I'm going to check in the command because like when I ran the test, I was just looking at the logs and everything was green, and I was happy with that. But I'll take a deeper look.
Yep, no worries.
Okay, let me. Do you know which test in particular is looking up the device ID?
Well, right now he doesn't. It's all hard coded. So if you that make sanity test in the Volta system test repo, that's the command you want to run. Right now I'm adding. There's a library in the robot directory.
Yeah, but
for Volta commands, and so you can set the BBSim ONU ID. But not unfortunately, it's just the BBSim implementation. That's a random. No, wait, that's not random. I'm sorry. The logical device ID is different each run, and so you have to look that up. And so you're gonna have to look that up from the OLT.
Yeah, but where
logical device?
Where does the test look up the logical device? I mean, why are they using the logical device? What are they using it for?
They're checking the flows.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
So they're basically
checking the flows in Volta.
Oh, checking the flows in Volta?
Yeah, they're doing Volt commands, Volt cuddle commands to check the flows.
Okay,
so they check Ono. So yeah.
I think we may be running a different test suite.
Okay.
Because the one that job is running, no, wasn't. course, is not replicated on. Anyway, we can take this offline, but I want to get the bottom of this and make sure that everything is working correctly.
Okay.
Okay. So, Keita, you had a proposal for to measure the BBSim scalability and verify that. So, if you want to speak for that, that is.
Yes, right. Yeah, I also have a presentation slides for it. So,
yeah,
can you share my screen?
Sure. Let me give you. Okay, you should be able to present.
Give me a moment. The button of share is now gray out, then I cannot share my screen right away. Why can I?
Are you from the application or from the browser?
From browser.
I think you need to be connected through the application to share the screen.
Okay, got it. Give me a moment.
Yeah.
So, please discuss something while I'm out. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, I get out once, and I will reconnect again.
Okay. So one of the other point I had, oh, Kate is back.
Yes, I'm back. Okay, let me share my screen.
Okay, let me give you permission. Okay.
Do you see my screen? Hello? You guys?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, good. Sounds good.
Yes.
So this presentation is for evaluating BBSim scalability. And as far as I can remember, some of us already discussed about this topic at the beginning of this year, but no one came up with a good idea about this. So this figure simply shows what is the problem we have for evaluating the BBSim scalability. So as you know, BBSim is an emulator for voter scalability, so measuring voter scalability. But how the problem is that how can I make an emulator of voter for measuring BBSim scalability? So this is like how we can make an emulator for emulator. So this is the problem we have. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So that is the problem we have. So what is the difficult point for making the voter emulator? So as we discussed a while before, we have a lot of, a bunch of types of messages and like, failure messages sent from OA News and, like OMCI messages and ePoll messages and DHC messages that are exchanged between OA News and OA News between OA News and so, and we also have a complex sequence of these exchanged messages for emulating the sequence between OA News and voter. So, if you are new to make a voter emulator, we need to emulate all types of these messages and sequences. I think, we need to spend a lot of time and cost for creating and completely emulating this kind of messages and sequences. That is the problem we have and difficulty in emulation of voter. So, and this is my proposal about this problem. So this is very simple. So how about ignoring the specification of messages and the sequence? And instead of it, how about only focusing on the performance in responding packets sent out from BBSim? So I mean, the core capability of BBSim would be the capability for responding messages to the packet messages that come from voter, right? So the types of messages and the sequence doesn't matter to the capability of BBSim. So this is just my personal opinion, but this is my proposal about the evaluation of BBSim in itself. I want you to understand. I hope you understand what I'm now trying to get at. So do you guys understand what I mean?
Kind of. So I think it makes sense, but I'm having a hard time to figure out how you can effectively test the scalability of BBSim if you are not forcing BBSim to send you the correct packets. Meaning that, so let's make an example. When everything starts, BBSim sends out the ONU discover indication, then sends out the ONU indication, and then Volta sends out the first OMCI package that is a MIB reset request. And BBSim will respond with the appropriate message. And that will trigger a chain of exchange. So what would you send instead of the OMCI MIB reset message if you don't want the Volt emulator to be smart?
So what I mean is that, so we need to have a packet generator for just pro packets. I mean, the BBSim need to have test clients and handlers that just respond the pro packets to the packet generator. So I mean, sorry, let me get back to this page. I mean, what I mean is that how about adding test clients and test handlers which just respond pro packets for measuring performance of packet handling in BBSim. In the current BBSim, ONU instance can create and send out the messages by themselves via gRPC stream to the voter, right? So if those clients, if there are some clients and handlers that just create probe messages and probe packets to send out the voter, we can evaluate the performance of packet handling in BBSim. So do you see what I mean? I hope you understand what I want to hear.
Yeah, so you're saying create like a dummy packet handler that
yes, right. That is my point. Yes. So if it is just a dummy packet, but we can evaluate the how many packets the BBSim can handle per second. I think that is the performance and the capability of BBSim. And I think there's no difference in the capability from the case which we emulate using real messages like OMCI messages or DHCP messages, ONU indications, and so on.
So I think it's a very good point because this will make it very simple to build an emulator. and it will give us some
yes,
some indication about scalability. It will still have some incognitos, meaning that if there is something in the packet processor themselves that is low, then we'll never know it with this emulation. So like it will let us verify that the OLT and the new structure that are forwarding the packets to the test clients are doing their job well, but it is not letting us verify that the OMCI, EPOL, and DHCP responders are performant.
Yes, right.
But on the other side is something very, very easy that let us cover a good chunk of the system.
So I think.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What is the point in understanding the scalability of BBSim? I mean, isn't it Volta that we're like? BBSim is just a test instrument, and we're trying to. Are we not trying to measure how the capability of Volta is? Isn't it?
Yes, but
I mean,
go ahead, Tal.
Yeah, we are using BBSim to verify the scalability of Volta, but in order to do that, we need to make sure that BBSim can scale more than Volta does. Because let's make a practical example. If I run Volta against BBSim with 200 ONUs, and it takes 25 minutes to activate all of them, I need to make sure that it's not BBSim that is the bottleneck.
Correct. Yeah, and that's what I'm finding today. I mean, it takes it with 16 BBSim with 16 ONUs using BBSim. It takes greater than or thereabouts 5 minutes before they settle.
Yeah, but
yes, right.
If you have go ahead.
And the bottleneck, is that Volta or is that BBSim? That's the issue there.
Yes, that's what that is what I want to we should know about. So what is the reason or what is the bottleneck of the lack of performance? So which side?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not inclined too much to know exactly how BBSim scaled. We just want to know that it's capable of meeting the requirements of Volta, for 200 or whatever number that we choose, to scale it up to. But once we know that it's capable of doing that, then we subject it to Volta, and then we're more interested in whether Volta can, meet the same criteria.
So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see the point. Yeah. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So I think. So yeah, I think you are right. So I mean, what criteria do we need to have for measuring the capability of Volta? So I'm now trying to define the capability as the packet per second or packet per second that Volta can handle, but it might be different from what the users and what the users of Volta want to know. But I think the core problem we have, important problem we have, is the packet handling capabilities of Volta, especially for open OMCI message exchanges or packet in, packet out capability. So that's why, why I proposed like this. So, this graph means, my proposal, simply shows my proposal. So I think the scalability means the, packets per second that the BBSim can handle. So, if we can calculate the requirements of packet per second that the voter need to handle at least when there are so many ONUs connected to OLT, and if the BBSim's capability in packet handling can exceed the requirement, we can claim that BBSim has enough scalability, for the simulation of the control messages. So that is my, proposal about this kind of things. So I think this would be very controversial problem, how we can define the performance, how we can define the performance of voter and BBSim itself. What is the scalability? That's it.
Yeah, aren't you subjected though to like the VM that you're using and the hardware and all that? I mean, in real life, I mean, we're not even trying to measure BBSim, like where is it going to run ultimately? I guess in a VM, or truly to exercise Volta, it always will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Could you say it again?
Well, I'm just trying to say, where is this going to run to? You're exposed to whatever hardware, I guess, that you're going to be running this in, and I guess it's going to be in a VM as well. So, you're limited by whatever that that those channels give you. Are you not?
But I guess I think the one of the purposes of this exercise is also to be able to say, okay, a given change that was introduced into the code, we can test it and see, okay, does this improve or decrease the performance or the performance of the simulator, given that it's running on the same, let's say, setup. So let's say if we implement some kind of test case as part of the pipeline, which could be run on every commit, we could say, okay, these are the number of packets that we are currently able to handle. And then that would be kind of comparable relative to the run. Of course, you're right that depending on the hardware, you might have different capabilities.
Yeah.
So you set a baseline and a certain set of hardware, and then as you make changes to BBSim, then you want to record what the impact. I mean, you don't want to decrease that too much yet.
Yes, it is a good question. So I'm thinking about using Edge Core OLT device as a test case for defining the requirements for performance of packet handling. I mean, as you say, we need to change the performance of BBSim depending on the hardware which we are using.
Mm-hmm. Okay, as long as you keep the the hardware the same, and then you can do your comparisons properly.
So, Keita, can I ask a question? So, I totally see the problem that you're highlighting. I mean, we don't want to have our Volta simulator be a kind of re-implementation of the real Volta, just to have the same functionality. So I'm just thinking, what would be the best way to break this up? Because I mean, one thing is, I guess, the actual packet processing, and I think that's probably bound to use by the implementation of kind of handling gRPC calls and handling those incoming packets and generating a response back. But do we want to also look at how different, let's say, workflows are handled? Let's say, when a specific input packet comes in, there might be a sequence of packets that get sent back and forth. That we want to also be able to capture this in a test environment somehow, or like where do we do the cuts and say, okay, this is kind of out of scope and this is in scope.
Yes, this is out of scope, of my proposal. So like you said, so I'm now trying to ignore the specific and the right way of sequences or messages that actually exchange between ORT and ONUs. This is just for measuring the performance of BBSim in itself. So if you want to know how actual messages are exchanged between ORT and voter, you just look at the actual messages that throw it and throw out. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, because like one of the issues that we run into in the past while trying to scale things up a bit was, for instance, let's say you activate a lot of ONUs and you say at a certain point, say now I want to activate, I don't know, 100 ONUs or something like that. Then there's a difference how that's implemented internally if those requests are executed in parallel, and then obviously that'll be much quicker, or if they're sequentially executed inside where the actual packet processing is not the issue. It's more the logic inside BBSim, how those requests are handled, that is turning into a bottleneck in that case. I'm not sure if those things will then kind of slip if we just look at the raw packet performance.
I see. I understand. But so yeah, I understand your point. So if yeah, maybe the sequence or the orders of the processing might be effective on the BBSim or voter performance rather than the packet handling and the packet handling capability of BBSim. Is that your opinion, right? So, for example, let's say sequentially activating ONUs and simultaneously activating ONUs has the different types of the packets out or packets in sequence, right? So I think
exactly.
But I think the bottleneck of the capability of BBSim would be just packet handling, because I think so. The current BBSim only has a so I have no strong confidence about it, because BBSim might have much more features in the future, but but current BBSim is very simple. So like this figure shows, the current BBSim just creates the messages and send out those messages to voter. That is all the current BBSim can do. So that's why I think that packet handling and packet in, packet out capability is just it is just what it is important for us. So, but I understand your point.
Yeah, I mean, I in general totally agree with what you're saying, and I think that should be like the baseline or the minimum that we should be aiming to be able to capture. Just thinking, if we start designing something that we might also want to keep in mind what other requirements we might have, for this.
So, Theo, I have one question about Theo. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
So, do you have any idea about the bottleneck that the current BBSim might have in the future? So, I think the gRPC stream between voter and BBSim will become the capability of BBSim in the future. So, do you have any idea about it?
No, not really. I think that in the current BBSim, so let's put it this way: if the gRPC stream become a bottleneck, then that's a problem we'll have on hardware too, and that will require some architectural changes in the platform. Within BBSim itself, I think the current implementation may have some bottlenecks because the channels are shared between all the venues. So if you start bringing up many venues, that may be a bottleneck, but it's more a guessing game than. I mean, I don't have any data to back that up, but if there is something, I would into the channels.
Just one example that we run into. Sorry, Theo, to interrupt. So one example that we run into recently, and it's just going along the lines what you just mentioned, is that when we have many ONUs trying to communicate over the same gRPC channel at the same time, then we run into some issues that the buffer of the channel ran out, and basically, there was lost packets. And if you try to make that to ensure that there are no lost packets using, I don't know, mutex or whatever, then the performance, of course, drops a little bit. So there's all these kind of issues that have to be also looked at in some way. I'm not sure what the best systematic approach would be to capture those early on, because I mean, obviously we'll as people start working with the software, they will be able to identify these issues and fix them. But I guess the question that we're discussing is there any kind of structured type of software that we can drop in front of BBSim where we could test and capture such bottlenecks fairly early on, so that we can work in the right direction to avoid them. So that's at least my understanding.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do with Bubber, that is of course not nearly ready yet, but I'm basically trying to build a wall for BBSim, meaning that whatever message BBSim sends, Bubber just responds with the expected response. It doesn't keep track of any state or anything, and that will kind of guarantee that that the performance of Bubber are higher than the one of BBSim, because it's not keeping track of anything. It's just bouncing packets back, and we kind of know which packet goes with what. Like if I get a amib amib reset, I'll send a amib reset response. If I'll get a I think it's called amib request next, I'll send just the next response. So I think it's possible to implement that kind of very simple logic, and and that will in theory should exercise a little more parts of BBSim and give us some more data. It's of course a little more complex than implementing the dummy packet responser that you propose.
I see. So if you can do it with very little cost, I agree with your proposal. So can I have the name of the bubble?
BBR. Yeah, there is not much code yet. It's on the same repository of BBSim. I just pushed a patch yesterday night. I don't know if it's even public, but it's really like maybe 50 lines of code for now. I'm starting to look into how to build fake MCI packets to send them to BBSim.
I see. So is it possible to implement all kinds of and various kinds of sequence in the exchanged between voter and OLT? So I think MCI sequence would be very complex to implement without any states in the emulator.
Yeah, that's
So
true. Yeah, I think it depends how you want to build it, because if you build a standard sequence and the only state you keep is which point in the sequence you are, that's not a lot of
Okay,
overhead.
I got it. I see. So yeah, if you can do, I think my proposal is not so important.
So what I'm going to do is to try to summarize the two proposals and send out a mail with that, so we can maybe move on with the discussion online. Does that sound good?
Yes, right. Okay. Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Sorry, can I just add one more thing? Have you maybe looked at some other existing tools where we could just maybe without having to develop a new tool from scratch, where we could reuse something which would allow us to generate a specific sequence of packets, which would, of course, then we'd have to define ourselves. Then we could then send and then use to measure. I mean, I'm thinking of something like Scapy for Python, but I'm not sure if it's up to speed, or if it's up to the task in terms of performance, but something like that, where we could say, okay, we take that and define a couple of basic workflows that we want to test against, and if the need arises to define some more complex scenarios, then we could still extend that and keep adding on additional packet sequences.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure if
I was looking to keep using Go for the emulator too, so that I can share some code between BBSim itself and the emulator. And Chip from Tbit started creating an MCI library for Go. And that is basically like an OMCI Go Scapy library. So I'm looking into that. I'm actually having a little issues using it because there is not much documentation around that library. But I sent out yesterday afternoon an email to Chip asking a couple of advices. But yeah, ideally, I don't want to use a canned response, but having the ability to create those sequences through a library, so that it will be easy in the future to change them or extend them. But if you are aware of any other tool that we can leverage, that don't hesitate to let us know.
Yeah, we'll do it for sure. I'll have a look also at Chicos, right? And I haven't had a chance to go through that yet. Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, so because I tried to look around, but that was basically the only one that I found for OMCI and Go. Okay, so the last items that was in the list was a Jira review. I'm going to share my screen again. And I should be sharing the BBSim dashboard. I just want to quickly go through what we have. I added a verify label to 5 bugs that were known in the current version of BBSim. I want to take some time to verify that these are still present in the new implementation. Otherwise, I'm going to close them. Regarding the in-progress items, are these developed against the old version of BBSim? Is that correct?
Yes,
yeah,
I
for my
think
two issues for sure.
Okay, but so correct me if I'm wrong, but like Jill's items, the Volta 2.0 functional test case, those should be agnostic regarding BBSim, meaning that they are operating Volta if the new BBSim works with Volta 2.0. The test shouldn't care about which version of BBSim is run. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Then, Kate, are you still working on SIBA 725?
no, because I think we need to focus on the new version of BBSim. So, and as I can find in your code, you already write test codes for it. So yeah, I think we should close it.
Okay. I just wanted to verify before closing.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, Zdravko, I think I saw an email from you that was saying that for SIBA 758 and 790, you already have patches that needs to be rebased and reviewed on the old one. So we're going to finish them in the old one and then port the feature to the new one. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm going to try to verify these 5 bugs. I'm going to bug David and Andy to get pointers in the issue that they are seeing. And that's basically, if anyone has any item that wants to pick it up, feel free to do, or feel free to get to come back to me if you have some spare time and want to do some work on BBSim. I think the next features we should focus on are to complete the device handling, basically meaning to implement the OLT reboot and the PON port enable disable. Followed by the alarm emulation and REST API parity with the current version, so that we can call feature parity and tag the first version of the new BBSim. There are already Jira items for the REST API parity and alarm simulator. I'm going to create a couple subtasks on SIBA 824 for what is missing in the device handling. And since we have only 3 minutes left, the last thing I wanted to discuss was whether do you think it's okay to leave this as a bi-weekly call, or do you think it's better to have a weekly call?
At least I don't have any topic to discuss next week. So, I agree with the bi-weekly meeting.
Okay. So for now, we'll keep it.
Yeah, bi-weekly, unless there's, a subject that needs to be discussed earlier.
Okay,
That's what I think.
so keep it bi-weekly unless urgent topics.
Yes.
Okay, that works perfectly for me. Okay, if there isn't anything else, I think we can call it a meeting and talk on the mailing list if needed.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay,
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.
okay, bye guys.
Theo, please say hello to Takahiro Suzuki, my colleague in NoNF office.
Okay, I'll do. Bye, Keita.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.